for me. I think I know Elijah Wood Jr. over here.
Hello, I'm Elijah Wood. Daniel Noah.
Josh Waller.
Tell me about Spectrevision.
Spectrevision. Who's best to speak to? Spectrevision. That guy.
Okay.
Spectrevision is our production company that we specialize in genre films, particularly horror right now, and I guess we're on sort of a mission to legitimize horror as a fine art form, or I guess it's already legitimate in our eyes, but to popularize that idea and to try and bring kind of more out-of-the-box films that are in that world into American culture, because I think a lot of our favorite genre films in the past 5 years or so have come from non-English speaking countries or from overseas, and
Sort of the European smart horror idea.
Smart horror.
Give me some examples.
European, let the right one in. We Are What We Are from Mexico.
Martyrs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sort of applying the smart film aesthetic to horror, a Jim Mickle approach, if you like.
Form. Yeah. I mean, we talk about elevated genre. We're a little tired of that because it sounds sort of like highbrow.
Well, it's also become
And
kind of
everyone
like a
is
dime store
using it.
phrase. Yeah, elevated horror. It doesn't even mean anything.
Maybe we want good horror.
Yeah,
It just means treating the genre with as much respect as you treat drama. Or
Good writing helps. So
does.
tell me how you're approaching the development process.
It's been kind of a multiple. We've worked with young writers on their first production or their first scripts and developed that with them. We found scripts that are relatively finished with established writers. We've gone directly to filmmakers looking for maybe their passion project that they can't get traction with other places. Those tend to be the things that we want.
yeah, we've developed a lot of ideas like in-house.
Cooties was one of
Cooties
our
was an
ideas.
original idea that we had, and then we just got
Which is here at
fortunate that
Sundance.
It is, yeah.
Lee Winnell and Ian Brennan.
Have you
chose
sold
to
that
write
yet?
it.
I'm sorry.
Have you sold that yet?
Have we sold it?
I mean, distribution?
It's in the process.
Yeah.
In the works.
I love it.
say
I love it when they
anything.
do that. It's
Can't
funny.
say anything.
So, what kind of distributors are you? Is your fantasy? That what kind of release plan? What alternative? What?
Depends on
What
the
are you
film.
open to?
It depends on the film.
Yep.
It's different every time, and I have to say that that's not something that we think about early on. Like we're not thinking about who we're gonna match it up with distributor wise. We're thinking about making a good movie first, and then see who ends up being the right home, because our taste is so eclectic as a company that it could be tough to just say that we're always going to go with this one distributor. So.
Is Cooties your first release? Have you got anything else out yet? No.
Cooties and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night are our first two.
That's
Yeah.
amazing that
Although
you
we
both
did-
got them into Sundance.
You're telling
Yes.
us. Yeah.
You're doing something right.
We also were involved with a film called Toad Road, which is already which came out at the end of last year in New York and LA, which was a finished film that we got involved with after the fact to kind of help them get it out there and get it seen. And it's just premiered on Netflix instead. It's a very, very powerful film that I think kind of pushes the boundaries of what horror even means. So that was technically the first thing that has hit the marketplace that we've been involved with. But Cooties and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night are the first films that we were involved with from the beginning,
Early stages.
From the early stages. So we're very excited.
Indelicate question, but where does the financing come from?
Variety of places.
Yeah, it's just different every time.
It is.
So you're raising it for each individual
For
project.
each individual film.
Right
and that
now.
process is entirely different for each movie.
Yeah, it's not necessarily our goal. I mean, finding the money is not the most fun part of filmmaking, as any filmmaker will tell you.
Yeah.
But so I think our goal would be to ideally have a fund, not set up for our company, not necessarily so we can 100% finance our projects, but so at least we can greenlight our own projects, and we don't. Yeah. Just,
Yeah, but even that's tricky because it comes with a lot of controls.
The sound on this is very limited anyway. This year there were two movies that right off the starting gate did badly, horror films, right away. what's wrong with the horror films that are not good?
I actually couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Paranormal Activity, the latest one, and another movie that just opened this past weekend. The horror films that didn't do well so
Well,
far.
I mean, I
The
think
audience
it's
is turning on them in a way.
No, I don't know that the audience is turning on them, but I think the audiences are wise, and I think that they're not to be, their wisdom is not to be taken for granted, and I think it often is.
Or
And I think,
lack of.
Well, yeah.
It's not to be ignored.
Not to be ignored,
Especially within the genre world, especially within the
Totally.
horror world.
Because some people have argued that it's been overtapped. So I'm
well, I don't think that horror itself has been overtapped, but I think, with something like Paranormal Activity, if it's the marked ones that didn't do well, that could just be exhaustion. To a certain degree, horror is almost the most guilty of repeating itself over and over until it can bleed a well dry. Because if something works, everyone wants to try and funnel their ideas into that same format, and then they do that until people get tired of it, and then it doesn't work anymore, and then they kind of bring in new ideas. But I think the horror fan, the genre fans are massive, and I think they're hungry for new ideas and films that are slightly outside the box.
I think a lot of particularly as a studio mentality, and we're not anti-studio. I mean, studios have made many of the greatest films.
Many of the films that we reference.
Yeah, but the studio, it starts with the commodification of the product, and they will, as Elijah just said, they'll exploit a product until it dies. That's the primary criteria, and they wait for the market to tell them it's dead. They don't try and
It's
stay
true.
Instead
ahead.
of anticipating.
Yeah, they don't get out while they're ahead.
So to say that horror took a hit because the marked ones didn't do well, I would take issue with. I think that Paranormal Activity franchise
may have
has
run
maybe
its course.
Run its course, or not.
Or not.
We're big fans of.
I've actually-
we love
Yes.
Paranormal
Yeah.
Activity.
I love those films too.
They're
Apparently
great.
the marked ones.
They're great. Yeah, and we've heard. Yeah, exactly. The marked ones is apparently excellent.
It's one of the better.
Yeah. So we'll figure.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.